Today we're joined by Guy Rambo, who is renowned in the tech community for his reverse engineering of software, writing for 9to5Mac, and his extremely popular, unofficial WWDC app for Mac. Guy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So for those who aren't really familiar with your work, can you describe what exactly you do and what spelunking is?
Yeah, that's a term that I don't know who came up with it, but it's been around for a while now. So currently I still work as an iOS developer for a big company, but that's about to change soon. I'm going indie again, as I recently announced on Twitter. But mainly what I do is I write for 9to5Mac, and my articles there are usually focused on results from reverse engineering stuff, Apple stuff, basically. And I also help them with being always up to date on new iOS releases and stuff. We usually get to publish about new betas even before they go live. And that's thanks to me. And so spelunking is basically doing reverse engineering on Apple stuff to find cool things.
And what kind of got you started with spelunking?
I guess it's I replied to something similar in an interview to Paul Hudson for Hacking with Swift, and it's basically since I was a young kids, I like to tinker with stuff and disassemble things. So it was natural for me to, when I started working with software development, to also do this other side of software development, which is reverse engineering and learning how things work and messing with things.
So some of your recent achievements include discovering glyphs of unreleased products, such as the iPhone X and the brand new smart battery case, as well as finding the marketing images for the iPhone XS and Apple Watch Series 4 before their official announcement. Is there anything you ever come across that you decide not to share with the public for one reason or another?
Never something like, oh, here are marketing images for iPhone 11 or something, and
right.
No, I'm gonna hold this for myself. That never happens. Even when we publish the marketing images for the Apple Watch and the new iPhones, people were like, oh, they have the images for the iPad Pro and AirPower and this and that, and they are holding that. That doesn't happen. Like, why would we do that? If we have the content and it's ready, we publish it as quickly as possible even. But sometimes I come across information which is a little piece of a bigger puzzle, and I could share it or talk about it publicly and say what I think about it, but I prefer to wait until I have more concrete information. Some of my articles, I don't have any specific examples to give now, but some of them were the result of like multiple findings accumulating over time. So I find a little bit of information and then another one, and then I can combine those together to create like a whole picture. So I prefer to share the whole picture when it's ready before sharing like just little pieces which don't really mean anything. And they can give also tips to other people who are also doing this, and they can find the whole picture before I do. So yeah, so basically I don't hold like, oh, iOS 13 is going to have dark mode. Let's say I figure that out. I'm not going to hold that. I'm going to post about it.
Are you ever hesitant to share like the source of something you found, like potentially to catch another similar leak in the future?
Sometimes, yes. There are some things like how we know about new betas before they go live. I'm not sure if Apple knows how yet. I'm not sure if they care even. I'm sure there are other people who know, but I prefer to not like teach it publicly
Sure.
or even like release my tool, which I developed a software that we use at 9 to 5 Mac called Apple Observer, and it's mainly for beta releases. It was even called Beta Observer at the beginning, but now it's Apple Observer because it does other things as well. But yeah, I prefer to keep that as a industrial secret for now. So some methods I keep secret because I don't want for them to like find and close the loophole. But yeah, not like security vulnerabilities or something. If I do find some security issue, and I did find at least once, I found an actual security vulnerability. In those cases, I do the responsible disclosure and I report them to the right people.
So when we talk about Apple and leaking products, the first thing that really comes to mind is Gizmodo in the iPhone 4. Hopefully, even a company as big as Apple doesn't have the resources to send a police squad to Brazil to break down your door in the same way they did with that case. But do you ever worry about some potential form of retaliation from them?
A little bit. I think that case was more complicated because it actually involved stealing property. So if I found an iPhone 11 prototype in a bar, I think that's very unlikely, but let's say it happened. I would definitely look at it and like see it and maybe take some pictures of it, but I would not try to sell it to a publication. I would do my best to return it to Apple, because that's the right thing you do when you find something that doesn't belong to you. Doesn't matter if it's Apple's or anyone else's. So yeah, they could do something like they could maybe kick me out of the developer program, but that wouldn't do anything for them really, because I would just use someone else's developer program to get access to the resources.
So it seems inevitable that leaking information about Apple and their products would get their attention. And I saw in your interview with Paul Hudson on Hacking with Swift that Apple has reached out to you, and you're unable to say much about your interaction with that, and that makes sense. With a company like Apple, it's easy to jump to a conclusion that you received like a cease and desist at minimum. But I think they could really potentially gain some advantage by using your experience to help them increase their security. Is that something they've ever tried to discuss with you?
They tried hiring me many times, more than a couple of times, but never specifically like saying, "Oh, we would like to hire you to do the reverse engineering and prevent leaks." It was never something like that. It was like trying to hire me for a developer position, basically.
Just hiring you so they can kind of put you under their thumb more?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. It's always like, "Oh, you're a cool developer and we think you do some good work." And yeah, but maybe that there's something behind that.
Right. Is that something you'd ever consider doing, or why have you turned them down in the past?
It's not in my radar at all, no pun intended. And working for Apple as a developer, it's very complicated, and there's even like a movement by developers to say like how they would like to work at Apple, but they can't because of the way working for Apple works. Basically, you have to give your life to Apple. That sounds extreme. It doesn't mean you won't have time for family and stuff. You definitely will. But when you work at Apple, you can't have open source projects. You can't have apps in the App Store. You can have a Twitter account, but it's very limited as to what you can tweet about. So basically, all of your developer persona has to be present for Apple to do Apple stuff. And yeah, but mainly what bothers me the most is like not being able to have an open source project, not being able to have an app in the App Store, not being able to do podcasts or have a blog, like I can't give that up. And even for Apple, I've had friends who went to work for Apple and they all disappeared. Like I don't even know where they are, really. Like it's happened like a few times. I have some friends there now that like I know they are still alive, and they sometimes say like, "Hey, how are you doing? Oh, great. How are you? I'm fine, thank you. How is work? Oh, it's fun. Cool. Bye." Something like that. But
sounds like a cult.
Yeah, it's like they abduct people or something. It's very, very interesting. So yeah, and so for a developer like myself, I do open source stuff. I do apps in the App Store. I tweet, I blog, I do podcasts. For me to give all of that up to work for Apple, like some developers say, "Oh, you have to give all of that up, but you can like work at Apple you put that stuff on hold for like 2 years, you work at Apple, and then you can put on your resume that you worked for Apple." But like, what does that do for me? To get another job elsewhere, but I don't want a job. I want to be indie, so
right.
It doesn't really, yeah. I mean, I'm sure it would be really cool to work there, but I don't want to give up all that stuff.
So yeah, and speaking of your current projects, it seems like you've been putting a lot of effort recently into Chibi Studio. Can you kind of tell us a bit about what that is and the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, I used to really be into anime, and I have a friend who's super into it, and Japanese culture and that stuff. I'm not that into it anymore, but I still like it. And when Apple introduced the iMessage apps with, was it iOS 10? Yeah, I think it was iOS 10. We were like, hey, this is interesting. Maybe we should do something for this. And Apple had a sample app they made for iMessage, which is kind of like what gave me the idea to make Chibi Studio, which was an app where you could, with a friend on iMessage, make ice cream. You would like, each one would choose a part of the ice cream, and you would like build a sticker of an ice cream. Like, yeah, interesting. And then I thought, well, maybe we could do something like that, but instead of building ice cream, you build a chibi. And a chibi, for those who don't know, it's basically mean little people. So it's like a cute little character, anime style character. And that's how Chibi Studio was born. And initially we planned on only having an iMessage app, and I'm super glad we changed our mind before releasing it, because iMessage apps are not really that great. And yeah, it's doing very well. We sell some item packs, so we have thousands of pieces of clothing and eyes, mouths, and other accessories you can use to make your chibi. And we sell some packs, and you can buy them in the app. So that's how we make money. And yeah, so it's doing great, and we have many ideas. It's funny because when we finished the version 1 of the app, we were like, I guess this is it. There's nothing really we can do to improve this. It's okay like it is. We don't have any ideas. And now we have like a huge list of thousands of features we want to do. There's like just things we would like to do with Apple Pencil on iPad. There's like a list just for that. And we don't have any Apple Pencil support at the moment, but that's going to change. We're currently working on a 2.0, which we've been working on it for a long time. And this long time is mainly because I've not been able to dedicate too much for it because of my day job. And that's going to change.
Man, that's exciting. I did a bit of digging through your GitHub account, and I found quite a collection of interesting projects. Of course, your WWDC app is there, as well as your popular Animoji Studio. But I've just been having fun playing Touch Bar Space Fight on my MacBook Pro. It seems like you're always working on various tech demos. But do you have any other big projects you're kind of planning to release once you go indie?
Well, I have one I'm working on right now, which people seem to be very excited about. It's the AirPods pairing thing for the Mac.
Right.
I'm not ready to say the name. It's going to have a name. I think it's a cool name. But yeah, it's a simple. It's not simple, but visually for the user, it's very simple. I wanted to have the same experience with AirPods on the Mac as I have on my iOS devices. So I decided to build that myself. And so you open up the AirPods case next to your Mac, you get the little interface with the AirPods rotating and the battery indication. And there's also a widget in Notification Center with the list of devices and battery and stuff.
Yeah, I've been following the progress of that on Twitter. That's pretty exciting. Are you planning on potentially trying to implement the pairing through that as well?
Not the pairing, because it would require the app to have some special entitlements, and which would mean it would only run on my Mac, basically, and maybe Steve Troughton-Smith's Mac, because we have a special boot flag set that basically says, hey, ignore the code signing and accept everything. So I'm not doing that. It would be a lot of work, even with the entitlements, and not many people would be able to take advantage of it. So I'm sticking to what I can do without like you having to hack your Mac to do it, which you can do the thing I did, like showing the interface and stuff, and that doesn't require anything special. The only thing is I won't be able to sell it in the App Store because first, Apple will never approve it, and second, because it uses some private APIs.
Just back to the pairing for a sec. Do you mean the original pairing, like you get new AirPods, or do you just mean the changing connection? Say I had it connected to my iPhone and I want it connected to a Mac now. Is that also something that would require SIP to be disabled?
No, changing connection is fine. Like there are apps that do it, like Tooth Fairy, which is a great app. That's all, even public API. It's just a Bluetooth API, and it's going to support that as well. But what I meant was like the original pairing, like when you open up a brand new pair of AirPods, or you hold the little button on the case. That can't be done, and I'm planning on actually handling that case by showing the UI and like with a little message, you need to pair this using your iPhone first or something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
that sounds neat. I think the trouble that most people have with AirPods and the Mac is not the original pairing, but it's the connecting them to the Mac after they've used it on, say, an iOS device.
Yeah, Tooth Fairy solves that. So if you need the solution right now, just get Tooth Fairy. I'm basically advertising a competitor, but that's fine. It's a great app. What I wanted to do, and it is kind of experimental, I wanted to do it like, let's say Apple would do this. How would it work? I guess you would have the little UI with the animation and the widget in Notification Center. So that's what the experiment I wanted to do, and it worked so well that I'm going to actually make a product out of it.
What does Tooth Fairy accomplish that clicking on the volume icon in the status bar and then choosing AirPods doesn't?
It's basically convenience, really, because when you click the volume icon, sometimes it takes a while for the AirPods to even show up on the list.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't altogether.
Yeah, exactly. And I have some radars about that. And Tooth Fairy, basically, you just click the icon on the menu bar and it connects instantly, or as quickly as possible, like in 1-2 seconds. And so you don't have to pick on a list and wait for a list to update. So basically what it's doing is it's fetching the device in the background, and as soon as it finds the device, it connects. So it's basically compressing a lengthy process of opening up a menu, waiting for an item to appear and selecting an item, and it's doing it automatically for you. And there's also an option that's kind of neat, where it will actually switch the output to your AirPods and ensure that the input is not your AirPods, because it happens sometimes. I don't know if it happens for you, but for me sometimes if I use the standard menu, it will choose the AirPods as both input and output, and then the sound is gonna be terrible, because when you are using the microphone on AirPods, the output quality drops significantly.
Yeah, it uses the old school SCA Bluetooth codec, which sounds terrible as soon as the microphone's turned on. So that sounds great.
Yeah, so Tooth Fairy basically ensures that when you connect initially, it won't switch the input to your AirPods. It will only switch the output. Of course, it's not magic. If you do use the input, it's going to drop the quality, but at least it won't do it when you're just connecting to use it to like watch a video or something.
Well, talking about kind of Mac development, there's kind of a bit of a rift in the developer community right now regarding Marzipan and its implications for the future of Mac OS development. A lot of people are excited for the inevitable explosion of new apps for the Mac once developers are able to easily port iPad apps over, while there's others that are concerned that UI inconsistencies will lead to a poor user experience. What's your opinion on Marzipan?
I mean, I think I'm kind of in the middle, but I definitely believe that the user experience is bad enough as it is with all of these Electron apps. I mean, we had some trouble here before we recorded because we couldn't get Skype to work, we couldn't get Discord to work, which are both Electron apps. I don't know if it's a coincidence. So I think it's a good thing for the Mac. It's not going to be perfect. The apps are not going to be perfect, but I much rather have an app on my Mac than not have it at all and have to use the website, or like have a terrible web-based app which uses a gigabyte of memory for a chat. Like, I much prefer an iOS app, even if it's not perfect. And the little UI annoyances, most of them can be easily fixed by Apple. I'm not saying they will fix them, but being easily fixed doesn't mean they are going to fix them, but yeah, they can be fixed, and some of them would be quite simple to fix. Like, they could even have a completely separate UI idiom for the Mac, which basically shows the UI components as more Mac-like, if they wanted to. I'm not saying they will, but they could.
Right.
So yeah, I think what we got, if I were Apple, I think I would have labeled the current project as beta, like labeled the news app as beta, the stocks app as beta, because there are some weird quirks at the moment. But yeah, overall, I think it's a good thing, and I'm optimistic. I know many people are not, but yeah, I am.
It's easy to be pessimistic when you do look at the 3 or 4 apps that have been brought across so far. Really basic things that you expect to be part of a Mac app aren't there, like multiple windows, or I don't know, swiping on the trackpad to go back a page. So some really basic things aren't there. Even on the Photos app, which is somewhere between Marzipan and a real app, has all sorts of keyboard inconsistencies. So yeah, personally, I can't wait for the next version, or for it to come out of this kind of beta phase that Mojave has at the moment.
I mean, I'm super excited for this year's WWDC. I'm super curious as well to see first how this is going to work for developers, because we don't know the developer story yet. We know that they're going to make this available to developers this year. I'm even curious to see, like, which apps are going to be there on day one? Which apps are they going to show at WWDC? Because I do expect them to have, like, I don't know, Snapchat on stage. Now we have Snapchat for the Mac, and we made it in a week, something. But they always have that when they release new APIs. So I'm super excited and curious to see what the story is going to be.
And did I hear correctly that you're going to try to make it to this year's WWDC?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going. I'll try to get the lottery thing. But even if I don't get a ticket, I think I'm going anyway to one of the other conferences that happen around the WWDC time, just to meet people. I think it's going to be fun.
Awesome. Well, James and I have been making this podcast for over a year now, and in that entire time, we haven't been able to go more than a couple of episodes without AirPower coming up. I know you're very interested in AirPower as well.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think the recent rumors involving AirPower finally making it into production are true?
Yeah. I happen to know some things about AirPower. I've not many things that other people don't know. Like, they had a big issue with it was heating up, it was catching fire, and they had to like develop a whole new system for the coils. I think it initially had like 17 coils or something like that in a specific arrangement, and then they changed to 22 or something like that. And they have been just like stress testing the device and making adjustments for several months. And I know that it's finally reached a point last year, end of last year, where it was like, okay, this is going to work. Let's start working on actually shipping this.
Right.
So basically, since September last year, I've been waiting for like, is this the day? Is this AirPower day? Because I knew it was almost ready. But it takes time, after the prototypes are approved and the validation is done and all the testing and stuff, then you have all of the manufacturing stuff to figure out. And yeah, so it takes a while. But I think we're finally going to get it soon-ish.
Evidence of how close it is to release is kind of everywhere, even in the really recent battery case copy on Apple's website included mention of AirPower. So you can see that they're writing this with the expectation that any day or any week, AirPower is going to be out.
Yeah, I think we're going to be getting iOS 12.1.3 maybe this week, the final version, maybe next week. I'm curious to see if the GM version is going to include support for AirPower, because that's not there yet. The underlying kernel extension support is there, but the UI level of support, including the cool animation, which is the only reason why I'm getting AirPower, is not there yet. It's been removed on iOS 11 dot something, and they need to put that back in for AirPower to work the best. And yeah, so I'm curious to see if that's coming on 12.1.3 or if it's coming with 12.2 or .4 or something. I'm not sure what the next version is going to be.
I know I personally was really surprised that the end of the year came and went without Apple so much as mentioning where AirPower went.
Yeah,
Do you
it's
think
so
that's
weird.
a good sign or a bad sign? Like, is it coming sooner, or do you think they're quiet because it's still going to be a while?
I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. It's a very weird behavior, like, because they're usually pretty good about saying when something is gonna be late. They did it with HomePods. I think even AirPods were late.
Yep.
And they just like say, hey, we need some more time to make sure it's perfect. Yada yada. They always have some PR thing they say, and it's fine. Like, okay, whatever. It's gonna be late. But it's almost like they feel so guilty that they don't want to mention it. It's weird. It's very weird.
Speaking of late products, do you think the battery cases were later than expected as well? Because originally we saw mention of them, I think, in some like holiday product guides that were sent out to retailers, and you also found glyphs of it in a watchOS quite a few months ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually, the first reference to those new cases was mine in early December. I think like a week later, the Star guidelines came up with the new cases. I think, and I know that the assets I found were present even before, so they were new when I found them. So they had been there for quite a while. So I believe that maybe they were slated to be released with AirPower, and then they were like, should we release them with AirPower? Should we release them before? Like, there was a little bit of confusion there. And they just used CES as an excuse, I guess, to release them. And there was even a thing that the description of the product in the App Store app mentioned AirPower, and they quickly updated the description to remove it. So That's another indication that they were planning on releasing them with AirPower.
That, and hopefully those wireless AirPods case finally will be here as well.
Yeah, I wonder if we are going to just get the wireless case, or if we're going to get new AirPods. Because there's been so much time, and I know that the first prototypes were being manufactured last year for new AirPods. So yeah, maybe there's gonna be even more than just the wireless charging case. And the AirPods website on Apple's website, the AirPods page mentions clearly that it's an optional wireless charging case. That's also interesting. Like, how is that going to work? Are they going to offer any version of AirPods with the charging case built in, or are you going to always have to buy them separately? That's gonna suck.
Yeah.
And the important question, are you going to replace all three of your AirPods cases with the wireless charging case?
No, just one of them.
Just going back to the glyphs that you found of the battery cases, you said they were there for a little while before you found them. Is that because you couldn't unpack them or put together what they were, or because you just didn't see them and then you actually went back and saw that they were there earlier as well?
Sometimes I come across stuff when I'm looking for other stuff. I think that was the case. I was looking for something in the latest watchOS beta, and it happened that those glyphs for the cases were not present on the previous beta. So I noticed because of the difference there. But yeah, they just flew under my radar on the iOS releases. I don't know, maybe they were there since the first beta of iOS 12. It's possible, because the first beta of a major version of iOS, there's so much stuff that changes that it's hard for you to track everything.
Yeah.
I have better tools this year. We'll see.
So, about a year ago, you wrote a Medium post about how you uncovered Instagram's yet-to-be-released video calling feature. In that specific case, you were searching for that feature based off of rumors. But do you have any other apps that you just regularly decompile and look through just to see what you can find?
It's not very common. It's mainly Apple's apps. Some of Apple's apps, like the Clips app, is one I look at just because it might have something. Also the Shortcuts app I like to have a look at. But that's basically it. Third-party apps I don't look into much, but yeah, unless there's something specific like the Instagram video calling thing, because I noticed that someone had found it for Android, and I thought I was probably gonna find it for iOS as well. And also recently the Facebook app, they were testing the dating feature. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and I managed to find that on iOS as well.
Is that kind of like Tinder, but in Facebook?
Yeah. Not creepy at all.
No. So, you mentioned the shortcut app. Do you have any favorite shortcuts?
Oh, I can probably find some. I have to open my library here because I do have quite a few.
Yeah, when you're calling it a library, it's definitely a few in there.
Yeah, I have
that's what it's called, isn't it?
I have the download YouTube videos one. I have one I made which is for gathering information from an app in the App Store. So you have like an app in the App Store, you can share and use the widget to like quickly copy the description, the release notes for the latest version, grab the screenshots for any device type and stuff like that, which is very helpful for a 9to5 Mac. I actually made it for Peter, which works at 9to5 Mac, and he recently switched to being like a full iPads person, and he was complaining about not being able to copy information from the App Store app, which he has to do for his posts, and I made this for him. I have a very simple one which I use to enable Do Not Disturb on my iPhone, that I use to, like, when I'm going to be cooking or something, I just yell to HomePod to enable, I think I call it peace. So just, I want some peace, and it enables Do Not
While you're
Disturb.
cooking, is it so complicated that you cannot afford to be disturbed?
Yeah, I need to be concentrated. It's just like you have your hands dirty, and you can't mess with devices and it's also kind of you shouldn't be touching your nasty iPhone full of bacteria while you're cooking. It's not good for you.
So, I'm curious to hear your opinions on the new iPad Pro. Of course, it's exciting how powerful they are, but a lot of people seem to agree that their biggest limitation is iOS. What do you think Apple could do to help iPad Pro meet its full potential in future releases?
When I'm using my iPad, I have like moments of pure delight and also moments of pure rage. Because it's so convenient in many situations, but then there are like simple things that are super hard to do. And some things, like, let's say I want to copy a link. Since they've introduced the drag and drop interaction on iOS, if you tap and hold on a link, it takes like 10 seconds for the options to appear. It takes forever. There are those little things that just drive me nuts. And I think the icon grid has to go. Like at least on iPad, it has to die, and it has to be replaced by something else. And I'm not sure what that something else is actually. Maybe something more like the desktop, where you can just put stuff in there, like files or widgets or little content areas with your, like, let's call them complications. There needs to be something done to basically springboard on iPad. And I believe, and I've seen some hints that they are actually working on basically a version of Springboard just for iPad.
Really?
Many people have been asking for like an iPad OS. I don't think that's completely necessary, but maybe just having a different launcher on iPad. Like, keep the same OS, but have a separate launcher for iPhone and iPad. I think that could be very helpful in improving the experience on iPad.
And I'm just remembering, it was like 6 months ago, you tweeted about a new puck touch type that the backboard can recognize.
Yeah.
Have we ever found out what that was for, or do you think that's potentially a new interface interaction for iPad?
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, I couldn't find anything else about it. So yeah, your guess is as good as mine. Maybe it is like a new device, or maybe it's like a technical term for something else we don't understand.
Sure.
But usually when it's that, someone will say like, "Oh, this just means, I don't know, that you're touching with your elbow or something." But no one said anything about it. So it's still a possibility that it's like maybe a dial, like the Surface dial thing, or something else. Or maybe I've seen them use the word puck to reference a mouse. So
like the puck mouse on the G3 iMac?
Yeah, like a cutesy name for mouse, because why use mouse, right? It's so boring. Let's use something else.
Sure.
And so that has like two possibilities. One is that backboard is adapted to work on a device like the Mac with marzipan apps, so you can have a mouse pointer, which is boring. The other one is that they are preparing iOS to support a mouse pointer.
Man, that'd take quite a bit of work.
It's kind of funny, like my dad, he bought a mouse for his iPad.
What led him to believe that would work?
I think it's like the ingenuity of a regular user. Like, well, I have my laptop, I can plug in a mouse and a keyboard, and that's it. So yeah, he wanted to write on his iPad, so he bought a kit which comes with a keyboard and a mouse, and I had to explain to him why the mouse wouldn't work.
You have your own podcast that you host along with John Siddell called Stack Trace, which just recently wrapped up its first season. Can you talk about kind of what the idea is behind Stack Trace?
It came from John. He basically messaged me one day, and he was like, "I hear about the stuff you've been finding and your discoveries and your news on other podcasts. And I think it's time you have your own podcast, so you can actually go into detail about your findings and stuff."
Yeah.
So yeah, and I had been thinking about it. It's funny because I had been thinking about maybe I should have a podcast because I really like podcasting, and I was even considering inviting him to be a co-host. And then he came to me. So yeah, so it was perfect match, and we have been doing it bi-weekly for a while. I don't remember how long. And our second season is going to start, I think the first episode of the second season is going to be on February 11th. And it's going to be, there are going to be interesting changes. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, okay. Come on, you can give us more than that, D.
Yeah, it's going to, we are, all I'm going to say is we're both going indie, so we're going to have more time.
Oh. Well, that's exciting.
That is a great teaser.
And I'm not talking about 10-hour episodes.
So, for those who have been inspired by listening to you today, what advice do you have for someone who might want to try splunking for themselves?
Oh, that's a tricky one. First of all, you have to be a developer. So if you're not even a developer yet, learn Objective-C, Swift, and make some apps, because you need to know how things are made to be able to disassemble something and understand how it works. You can do it without knowing, but it's a lot harder. And if you're very curious about stuff, how stuff works, you like to disassemble things, just get a copy of Hopper, the disassembler, and start dragging some Apple apps into it and see what's inside. So that's basically it. Of course, there's a lot more to it, but the basics, those are the basics. And I'm actually going to be doing a workshop, actually several workshops this year that I know about. I'm going to be at App Builders, the conference. I'm going to be at Swift Aveiro in Portugal, and also NS North, which is in Canada. So if you have an opportunity
busy schedule.
Yeah. And those are the ones I know about. There are probably going to be more. And there's also a video of a talk I gave at NS Spain last year, where I go like into a little bit of my background and some description of how I do some of the stuff I do, which I think people will find interesting.
And I saw also if someone's willing to pledge enough on Patreon, they can kind of buy a little bit of your time for help with a project like that.
Yes, and there are some videos on my Patreon with like I basically started recording and did some things. I think there's one where I reverse engineer some touch bar stuff for an app I made. Yeah, so there's some interesting content in there.
All right. So before we let you go, we thought we would have you join us in what we usually do on the podcast, and that's discuss the top posts on the Apple subreddit. We're just going to look at one today, and that's a post by you, Adam Cannon, linking to a Verge article titled Apple Reportedly Planning 3 iPhones for 2019, one with new triple camera system. Have you seen these rumors about the new iPhones?
Yes, of course.
What do you think about this like square module to house the sensors and flash?
It's ugly.
Yeah.
It's funny because there's something I think our community in general, like the people who are interested in Apple leaks and stuff, need to learn is that there's a big difference between a leak and a concept. The things we saw this week, they are renders. They are concept renders made by people who have an idea of what the phones are going to look like. Probably they heard from someone in the supply chain, like second-hand, third-hand information, and then they sat down and like basically modeled what they heard. So it's probably kind of close-ish to what the iPhone's gonna look like, but I see some YouTube channels and blogs and stuff. iPhone 11 has leaked. No, it hasn't. If it does, it's probably gonna be by me. But there's no iPhone 11 to leak. Like maybe there's like Cinema 4D project on some super secret Apple computer in Apple Park, but that's it. Like the things they have at the moment are prototypes, and prototypes are very different from production models. So yeah, that's like a meta discussion.
Right. The other two changes, I think one of them is rumored and one is just something that's in my head. Firstly, whether it will go from Lightning to USB-C or not. And secondly, whether we're going to see the notch either become smaller or change to something like Samsung's Infinity O, where it's just like a little cutout in the screen. Have you got any thoughts on those potential changes?
I believe they're going to stick to Lightning, because I think the move on iPad Pro is more about it being a computer. Like, what's a computer? And I think there's something about USB-C on iPad Pro we don't know yet, because remember, iOS 12 was supposed to be a lot more than it ended up being. So maybe iOS 13 is going to bring more stuff to iPad Pro specifically that's related to USB-C and external displays. So yeah, so I think they're going to stick to Lightning and keep USB-C to the Pro line of iOS products. And what was the other question?
Whether the notch is going to change at all, either becoming smaller or just change to camera cutouts in the screen.
I honestly think it's more likely that it's going to be the same. Unless like the pressure, because there's this whole thing now about China, and a big aspect of they not selling very well in China, despite the entire trade war and stuff, is that many people in China buy the iPhone because they want to show off, basically. And I totally get how that works, because it's kind of like that here in Brazil as well. Many people just buy the latest iPhone because they want people to see that they have the latest iPhone. And if it looks exactly the same, people can't tell that you have the latest iPhone. So why are you going to upgrade?
A big, ugly camera module will solve that problem.
Yes, that's a possibility. I would prefer a smaller notch than that, but we'll see.
Right. Well, James, do you have anything else before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Guy for something very small and particular that's changed the way I use my Mac. I can't remember where I read it or heard it, but you said to enable type to Siri instead of speak to Siri, and it has just made Siri like something I use every half an hour instead of never. So thank you.
Oh yeah, I love type to Siri. I even have it on my iPhone now. I basically only talk to Siri on my Apple Watch or my HomePod. I don't talk to Siri on any other device. So yeah, if you don't have that enabled, enable type to Siri on your Mac, and also create like a shortcut, a keyboard shortcut, if you don't have the touch bar, and then you can like use Siri as like an intelligent spotlight, and instead of talking, you just like, let's say you have a mail message open, you can press your keyboard command and say, remind me about this tomorrow at 10 a.m. and it's going to pick up the message you have open and create a reminder. And that's just one example. Yeah, type to Siri is really cool.
Yeah, it's day and night. It's incredibly useful. It's almost as if it should be the default on the Mac.
Yeah, I actually think so. It should be the default on the Mac.
I haven't tried it. I'll have to try it out. So, well, Guy, it's been great getting to talk to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
We really look forward to seeing what comes next as you go independent and tuning into Season 2 of Stack Trace.
Yeah, me too.
For those who are interested in contacting us, I'm Jellywoot on Reddit and Twitter.
I'm James VDM on Reddit and Twitter. And Guy, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter. I am @_inside.
And if you're interested in supporting the show, we have a Patreon at patreon.com/The R Apple Show.